Hey freedom lovers, this is Dr. Peterson Pierre with America's Frontline Doctors bringing you today's Daily Dose. So if vaccines are as safe as the medical industrial complex claims, then let the courts prove it. Representative Paul Gosar introduced the End the Vaccine Carve-Out Act. The bill would repeal two federal laws that protect vaccine makers from liability, the PrEP Act and the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act, NCVIA. The PrEP Act gives blanket immunity for harms caused by vaccines and other medical products during a public health emergency. The National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act of 1986 offers the same kind of protection, but permanently for all vaccines on the CDC's childhood immunization schedule, which schools across the country require for enrollment. In other words, pharmaceutical corporations make the vaccines children are forced to take, but they don't have to answer for the damage if something goes wrong. This is absolutely absurd, which is why it does not apply to any other industry on God's green earth. If an airbag kills your child, you can sue the manufacturer. If a medication causes a stroke, you can sue the drug maker. Companies are held accountable for their products. That is not anti-science. So why are vaccines the only product that exists above the law? Well, it started with a threat. In the 1980s, Big Pharma had to respond to many lawsuits from families whose children had been seriously injured by routine vaccines. So, the industry threatened the federal government. Big Pharma told Congress they would simply stop making vaccines unless they were given immunity. See, had I been in Congress at that time, I'd have said, go ahead, stop making them. We're not going to miss you or your products. That should have been the end of the conversation. If the courts are siding with injured children, that doesn't justify legal immunity. It proves the system is actually working. But instead of demanding safer vaccines, Congress gave pharmaceutical companies an exemption from the harms their products cause. No accountability, no incentive to change. So pharmaceutical companies have exponentially increased their vaccine offerings. None of their other products enjoys this immunity. Once shielded from liability, drug makers relaxed their standards. The agencies looked the other way as the revolving door between regulator and pharmaceutical executive became commonplace. In 1999, the CDC itself conducted an internal study examining a potential link between the hepatitis B shot and autism. The results were explosive. Children who got the shot faced a 1,135% higher risk of autism. So what did the CDC do? They buried the information. Since the NCVIA was passed in 1986, the number of recommended childhood vaccines has skyrocketed from 7 to over 40. That includes shots like hepatitis B given to babies on their first day of life for a disease spread through IV drug use or sexual contact. None of this makes sense. That is, until you follow the money. The NCVIA created the Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, and the PrEP Act created the Countermeasures Injury Compensation Program. Neither does what it promises. The VICP sets an impossible bar. Quote, the plaintiffs must prove that the vaccine manufacturer deliberately withheld information, engaged in criminal activity, or by clear and convincing evidence failed to exercise due care, end quote. And if that's not absurd enough, the CICP is even worse. Known as the black hole, it has rejected nearly every claim it's ever received. Since 2010, the program has received over 14,000 claims. Only 48 have been paid, an approval rate of 0.34%. And 96% of those claims came from, you guessed it, the COVID-19 shots. Only 18 COVID-19 shot victims to date have been compensated. Vaccine ideologues fret about vaccine hesitancy. The Biden administration poured millions of dollars into over 40 grants to study it. But they continue to ignore the obvious. Manufacturers of safe products don't need liability shields. Protecting vaccine makers from liability is a red flag, and it removes the last meaningful check in the scientific process. Without legal consequences, bad actors flourish. That's why Representative Gosar's End the Vaccine Carve-Out Act is essential. Congress should pass it, and if they don't, we need to find new lawmakers who will. Because the health of our children is at stake, and so is the future of this nation. Ladies and gentlemen, only the truth will set you free. Stay tuned for the next Daily Dose.